mighty Mitta Mitta, a traditional Australian country fair with cattle and equestrian events, wood chopping, carnival events too. What sets it apart from other country fairs around Australia? Water divining. I arrived in the countryside at Mitta Mitta on Friday the 8th of March with a couple of skeptics brought down from New South Wales. After a long day on the road, it was nice to sit back with our hosts, Laurie and Eden Smith. We were joined by other skeptics as we sat around the dinner table and chatted about the upcoming divining test. You did what?
I dreamed.
You dreamed?
I was walking around with Andrei Tarkovsky.
For our listeners, who is that?
A film director.
Thank you.
Been dead 25 years. My hero. I dreamed I was walking around with him in paradise.
It's none other than skeptical Steve Roberts. Hello, Steve.
I'm a principal fan of Andrei Tarkovsky. Hello, listeners. Yes.
Yes, Steve, I caught up with you last year, and after your huge adventure right across Russia
Yes,
on
but
a
I've
motorbike.
been released now, thank you. So, yeah.
And I'm here in wonderful, beautiful Mitta Mitta at the home of Laurie and Eden Smith. We're enjoying a lovely dinner. This weekend, Steve, the mighty Mitta Mitta water divining test.
Indeed, yes, it is. The third time we've done it. We did it a couple of times in the 2000s.
Yes.
And it was a great hoot to do it. We get samples of water and sand in plastic bottles that are covered so you can't see what's in them. The dowsers or diviners, whatever you call them, turn up with their bent wires or forked sticks and try and determine whether it's water or sand in each sample.
Now, you were present at the 2001 test?
Yes, I was, yeah.
And I was present at the 2002 test.
I didn't see you around. Yeah, you didn't see me around, but yeah.
We were at different tests.
We were indeed, but I've studied the video intently and I've done the protocol for this test, and what you have to realise is that everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Including a dog.
Including a dog that pisses on one of the samples and so you can see through the bag, and a child that treads on a sample and breaks it, and water or sand.
Well, to be fair, the year you did it, it was more or less in the open, and the year I did it, the following year, we had the tennis court, so we could keep people off.
We did it in the open, and the crowd was just impossible to manage. They crowded around the diviners, and the poor blokes couldn't get peace and quiet, and they got in the way of everything. And we didn't define a proper area where they could stand and view, so now we arranged to do it on the tennis court, which is fenced off. And
Just had a beetle.
Yeah, they can get privacy on the tennis court, and people can look from outside the wire, and that's the best we can do.
And that's what we did 11 years ago when I filmed it. We had the tennis court, which worked very well because they could have peace and quiet. But strangely enough, it didn't seem to aid their water divining ability.
Well, that's their problem, but we have to be fair to the diviners. You have to give them a fair chance of a fair test without the crowd interfering, without skeptics breathing down their necks if they don't want it. And
okay, listeners, that was a cricket. Now,
it's jumped on you.
that's not cricket.
It's not cricket. It's gone away now.
It just jumped on the microphone. Now it's flown off into the night. We're surrounded by a multitude of insects here. We're right in the middle of the countryside at beautiful Mitta Mitta. And enjoying a glass of wine with me, of course, is Laurie Smith. Hello, Laurie.
Hello, Richard. Cheers.
Oh, this is very... Listeners, I wish you were here. Oh, no, there's not enough wine for that. Laurie, looking forward to the weekend.
Very much, Richard. We've put in a lot of work, but it's all coming to a culmination now, and just can't wait for it to start.
Now, I had such a wonderful time 11 years ago when I was here for the last test and enjoyed your wonderful hospitality. Were you present at the one before that, the year before that?
Yes. Yes, I haven't missed a Mitta divining challenge yet, Richard.
All three of them.
All three.
And, of course, this year we have some more people in tow with us from Sydney. We have Josh. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Richard.
This is your first water divining experience, I imagine.
It is indeed.
Well, you're in for a treat. Oh, you would have only been a little kid for the last time around.
Oh, not that young. 16 or so.
Yeah. Hey, a little kid. Martin Hadley. Hello, Martin.
Hi, peace and love.
Well said. Sitting under a wind chime as you are. Have you been... I can't remember. I don't think you've been involved in a water divining test yet, have you?
This is my first. First timer.
Another one.
Looking forward to it.
But for somebody who's an old hand at many things, of course, sitting on the other end of the table, we're out here in the beautiful open air, you can hear the crickets. It's with a mouthful of steak, Ian Bryce. You were involved in a previous water divining test 20 years ago?
1989.
Over 20 years ago.
That was in Sydney.
Yeah, and Dick Smith was there briefly.
Dick Smith arrived in his helicopter.
But you were really...
And Dick Smith produced a gold nugget, a gold ingot, which was one of the things the diviners were going to find. I was holding it for a while, and I looked around at the gold ingot and looked at his helicopter, and I thought I could skedaddle with this gold ingot and be set up for life.
You don't know how to fly a helicopter.
No, well, that was really what kept me there.
However, all those years ago, you were involved with a water divining test. Well, it wasn't. It was water, wasn't it? They were hiding water under the ground.
Yes, it was water in large bottles, in holes in the ground, covered up with discs of glass, and then discs of plastic, so you couldn't see what was in there. And the diviners were all sure they could find a bottle. If the bottle was visible, their rods responded all the time. If the bottle was covered up while they were watching it, their rods still responded. But at the moment, it was a double-blind test where no one knew where the water was. Their rods would go to a hole and respond to that hole. Then you take the cover off. There's nothing there. Then their rods would hesitate. And start turning their attention to another hole. So it was very revealing about how water divining works.
I think you're absolutely right. So, Ian, I'm glad you're here to be on deck with us to aid our water divining activities. Laurie, just coming back to you. And Steve, of course, what many people don't know is you can't just say we're going to have a water divining test, turn up and say, we'll have a go. There is a lot of preparation and planning.
Well, I've been surprised by the mathematics which Steve's been involved in. Maybe you could comment.
Surprised or amazed, yeah. Well, the maths is actually fairly easy. I mean, the samples are either water or sand, so it's basically 50-50 whether you get it right or not. So if you do 20 tests, it'll be one chance in a million, roughly, to get all 20 right, or you'd expect 10 out of 20 at random. If somebody gets 12 out of 20, is that significant, or would you expect that if you have 20 diviners trying it? And the maths is actually fairly well defined for this, but the thing is, this all has to be explained to the diviners.
Because they'll get some and say, see, it works on those ones. Even if they get 8 out of 20. They'll say, yes, but it worked on those ones.
Yeah, that's right, they'll say, well, it worked on those 8,
yes.
Which is 100%. I want the money. So, and of course, our money is actually at risk. It's not at risk on the day. We've been very careful to say that. What if somebody scores 18 out of 20, which is... given they have several chances to try it, that's about 1,000 to 1. We guarantee to invite them back for a second test without the crowd on another day, with similar odds. That if they can do it again, then we'll award the prize of $100,000 plus 10 grand thrown in by one of the locals here. But our money is actually not at risk on the day. What's at risk is the invitation to do a second test. But you really can't risk 100 grand.
Well, this is the standard thing. I mean, the James Randi Educational Foundation have the same protocol. There are 2 tests. The one is to sort out, do you actually have this ability? Let's have a good test, but not such a strict test. Because the ultimate aim is we only want to test people for the money who can actually pass and get the money. Really, that's what we want to do. If somebody can really do it, we want to know and reward them.
Very much so, and I might add also, since we incorporated in the last test the 2 undisguised calibration samples of water and sand, which the diviners were invited to run their instruments over before the test. There wasn't a diviner that failed to have a good response on the calibration samples, but of course when it went on the ones with the paper bag on them, the ability seemed to disappear.
Yes, that's very interesting. Now, some years ago, of course, when I was here in 2002, I filmed the whole thing, made a documentary about it. That's on YouTube. So if listeners want to see the documentary from all those years ago, just Google Mighty Mitta Mitta water divining. You'll easily find it. And it's amazing to think after all these years, it's back for, well, it's really round 3, isn't it, of the local water divining tests, with a big gap.
Best of 3 rounds, and so far we're 2 up.
Well, I'm looking forward to the whole weekend. It's going to be an awful lot of fun. We're going to get some great interviews and insights running around the tennis court and talking to diviners and skeptics and media on the day. And it's just wonderful to be here and enjoy the good company of some good friends. And cheers, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, very much.
To water divining and skepticism.
Divine invitation.
After a wonderful sleep, we got up the next day on Saturday and went over the test, setting up little protocols and examining the bottles we were going to use, making sure things would be okay on the day. I think we spent the rest of the day just chatting and having a good time. Come Saturday night, we went to the house of Russell and Robin Kelly. They put on for all their friends a country dance and a giant barbecue. Now, in the queue here to get his lovely piece of beef and mixed vegetables and potatoes and pumpkins and all sorts of things at Steve Roberts. Steve, we went out to the testing field today to case the joint.
We did indeed, yes. It was a tennis court at Mitta Mitta. It's bare concrete, it's searing in the afternoon sun.
It's hot, isn't it?
The glare was so bad I couldn't look, at it, so I'm going to test this blind. It's a double-blind test. And we worked out where to put things and how we're going to do it tomorrow, and we already prepared how to do the samples this morning, and we did a bit of a rehearsal and get it totally organised, because tomorrow we'll be doing it all under the glare of the public and the television
the glare
cameras.
of the sun.
And the glare of the sun.
Cameras.
And television cameras, yeah. And if we have an argument, it'll make great television. So we've got to be careful to get all this done beforehand.
I think it's a good point to make, that people don't realise how much work goes into organising a test of water diviners or any psychic test.
It's got to be fair for the diviners. It's got to be a reasonable test that they can understand and that they see as fair to them, and have a definite result, a definite risk to the skeptics, so we have to part with our money. In fairness to them, there's got to be a real risk of that, because that is their payload in this. Our payload is that we can make a graph of results and show that a random distribution, if that's how it turns out.
If that's how it turns out. Oh well, I think I will delay you no more.
Excellent, yeah, the barbecue is ready and I'm very peckish.
Normal way.
Normal way, yeah, thank you.
As I live and breathe, who should we bump into in the barbecue in here at Mitta Mitta? It's Ratbag himself.
Good evening, Richard.
Good evening. Now, you've come down here to take part in the water divining test too.
I certainly have. Look, I'm really interested in water divining. I live on the top of a mountain, and we're very short of water there, obviously, because it all runs downhill and disappears. And so we actually would like someone to come up there and find water for us. Although, last Saturday, when it rained 140 millimetres, I don't think we needed a diviner. They might have gone nuts.
Now, you must remind me, have you taken part in one of these water divining tests before?
No, I haven't. No.
First timer.
It's a first timer, yes. I mean, I remember seeing them. I remember seeing the very first one, the one that was inaugurated Australian Skeptics.
Yeah, 1980-ish.
Yeah, way back then. I don't even know what. I must have been in kindergarten, so I'm not quite sure. But I actually remember seeing that, and obviously I remember the Randy one on the television later in the piece. The one with Richard Carlton and that. So I've been watching it for years, but I've never actually been to one.
Well, you're in for quite an interesting experience when you start to meet the diviners and see them walking around. Some will fly through, some will take an hour. It's quite interesting.
One of the things I have seen, like obviously just observing from the outside, diviners, while we consider maybe that they're deluded, they all seem to be really actually honest people. They think they've actually got some
I agree.
Power. I've never actually met or heard of a diviner who's actually a crook. Unlike a lot of other people who do woo-woo type stuff, who, when I case, they know they're just lying.
I think some know that they're on the take, really.
Oh, look, I do. But what it is with a lot of diviners, particularly ones that work out in the bush, it's they know if they've done it for years. They recognise signs like different colour of the grass and so forth. They mightn't be able to put their finger on it, but it's a form of expertise. But of course, if you do it anywhere in Sydney, you dig deep enough. Sydney sits on this huge block of sandstone next to the ocean. It's full of water.
Yeah.
You dig anywhere in Sydney, dig deep enough, you'll get a well that makes water. But if you do it out here in the bush, generally these people are using observational skills that they may not know they have.
Possibly so, yeah.
In the same way that some people can convince themselves that they're psychics. Even though they're doing a form of cold reading, they may not know they're doing it. Just because they know the sort of questions to ask, they know the sort of responses they get from people, and they follow those responses along. So, I mean, I'm not saying that. I think that diviners, a greater proportion of diviners are like real and actually believe they can do it than the psychics that do psychic
I think
reading.
you're absolutely right, and I think tomorrow when you meet some of them, you'll really get that impression. If they're anything like they were 11 years ago.
The one thing, of course, that I know they will all do is that they'll all agree in advance to all the conditions, and at the end of the day say, "Oh, look, but this was wrong.
That was wrong. That's
wrong.
right.
That's wrong." No. I'm actually glad it's not raining. Because as I said last week, if it was raining, it would confuse them enormously. Because all I have to do is point the sticks around. There's water everywhere.
Well, I think the band is striking up in the background over there, and I think the dancing will start soon. So, Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now it's Don Hyatt from Victoria. Don, is this your first water divining test?
It is indeed, Richard, and I'm really looking forward to it. I have seen the video. We think it was it 2004? The
2002.
2002. So I've been prepping for this event by watching the video, and of course I was inspired by Tam last year. Of course, we had I think his name was Matt, and he was testing on stage with Banachek and so on, and I think you were up there too.
I was up there too, yes.
Yes, and he was testing a variation on the power wristband. I think there was some sort of special chip or something like that in there.
So, yes.
And it was absolutely riveting up to about the 10th minute when it was quite clear that he was not going to pass the test.
I think you'll find tomorrow interesting because it can be a long day, and when the water diviners start going. But I think what you'll find is interesting is all the different techniques they have. Some will have wires, some will have sticks, some will do all sorts of things we can't even imagine.
Yes, indeed. I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, we're going to have to do some serious slip, slop, slapping because we know it's going to be about 35 degrees tomorrow. But I was listening to what Peter had to say before, and what I'm really looking forward to is the excuses at the end of the day, because these guys come up with the most amazing excuses as to why it didn't work. But the excuses are always in retrospect, I'm not being psychic here by predicting that there are going to be excuses. I'm a skeptic after all, but I suspect there are going to be a few excuses.
I suspect you're quite right. All right, Don, big day ahead tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you out there on the testing field.
Looking forward to it, Richard. Should be a great day.
After another fine night's sleep, we got up early, had breakfast, and drove down to the testing field, the old Mitta Mitta tennis court, which had been converted into a netball court. Nevertheless, there it was. And a group of us arrived early to start setting up the day's test. It's 8:15 here on the big day of the test, Rat Bag. Here we are ready to go. We've set up one of the tents. We've got somebody sweeping the field of where the testing's going to be, and the other skeptics are busily getting themselves together. It's going to be a fun day.
I think it's going to be an excellent day. The weather is fine.
Yes, and a bit of cloud cover, which is really
cloud cover,
nice.
yes. That'll just mean the sunburns was, but
that's right.
And we won't notice it until tomorrow. But I think it's the perfect weather.
Yep.
It could have been raining, which of course would be immense distraction for all the dowsers because they simply say, there it is.
Well, that would be disappointing, wouldn't it?
It's very easy to find water when it's raining. I'm looking forward to it because I think that I haven't been to one of these before.
Oh, yes.
But I've been following Dowsing for forever. And so it'll be interesting to actually see how we do it, how we run the experiment, and what we find.
Me too, and the other skeptics are over there setting up yet another tent, which is really good. It's quite a wonderful scene here. It's because the sun's not out yet. I mean, it's still hard behind clouds. It's very pleasant, but we've got a giant shark, inflatable shark. The horses are getting ready in that corner over there. We've got equestrian events being set up over there.
It looks like a really good day, but it's not just this. It's a whole
country fair, isn't it?
Country fair.
And even over there, we've got the old steam engines, and I know Ian Bryce, our engineer, will be very excited to go and see those old.
I like those sort of things too. They have those at the Grenfell Fair, and they've actually got a local group there that come in with all of these ancient steam engines or steam farm machinery rather than steam engines. Yeah. And it's wonderful stuff. I'm fascinated by the big shark slide right over there.
The big shark slide. I've never seen such a big inflatable shark in my life.
No, I'm just a bit disappointed that they won't let me in the jumping castle because I'm too tall. I just hope that I'm not too tall to go on the shark slide because I think that'd make my day.
Well, as we thought, Ian Bryce, there are a couple of diviners showed up very early and were having a chat to us, and they were telling you some of their concerns.
Yes, indeed. One problem is that there are two different types of sand, apparently. There's river sand, which has got minerals in it, which metal rods respond to. And there's Ricky's sand, which is washed free of all minerals, and only wooden rods respond to that. So there's two different things.
That's good to know.
So that's another.
And what was the other concern? Something to do with the metal poles around the court.
Have you've heard of spontaneous human combustion? I'm sure.
Oh, I have.
Well, that's. If you calculate, you'll find out a third of the body burns away in that, because a third of the body consists of static electricity. And that interferes with divining.
Is this what one of them just told you?
Yes,
I
that's
see. Oh, okay. Well, I can't. This is better than I could imagine, because it's normally at the end of the day we hear all these wonderful new theories and excuses, but it's coming thick and fast already.
And the problem is here that we're in a tennis court with a metal fence.
Yeah.
And if some of those poles go down far enough to connect with the electrical earth of the planet, then that'll interfere with the divining rods, you see.
It's amazing divining works at all, Ian, isn't it?
So many things can go wrong.
So many things can go wrong.
Yes.
One of the tasks on the day was to run down to the river with lots of 2-litre milk bottles, plastic milk bottles, and fill them up with Mitta Mitta river water. I'm with Steve Roberts and his little green wagon. And we're walking down from the tennis court, the netball court, quite a distance actually, down to the river. So we need to use fresh river water, Steve.
Yes, from the foaming waters of the Mitta River.
Which is here somewhere, because
If we can find the Mitta River.
we're walking down a path. There are campers here. Look, these people camping here for the show.
Well, people will be camping near the river.
Yeah, this might be a way down here. There's the river. Look at that, the flowing waters.
Oh, foaming, of course.
Foaming, of course, yeah. That looks very, very pleasant. Upon our return from the river, and once we set the bottles out on the court to inspect them, we noticed that there was a lot of condensation on the outside of the bottles. This could be a problem, as the bottles were going to be wrapped up in cloth bags. Luckily, the bottles didn't stay wet for long and dried out very nicely in the sun. Before long, it was time for Steve Roberts to begin the briefing for the gathered water diviners.
They're the same as the other samples. And we asked that you divine these 4 successfully, and there's a space on the sheet for doing that, to make sure your rods and techniques are working. Then you divine the other samples. One of us will follow you around with a clipboard and try and not get in the way, so if you want them to step back a metre or so, that's fine, or be off the court altogether or whatever, but there'll be lots of people on the court. And as you go around, you say if it's water or sand, with whatever technique you go up, and we write it down on the form here. We keep a copy there which you get to keep, so you don't have to record it for yourself. And now none of us know whether these samples are water or sand at all. I know about 4 of them, and he knows about 4 of them, and that's about it. After you've all been round to your satisfaction, we'll close the trial. We'll close that trial. It'll be about an hour, and then we'll reveal what's in all the samples. We can go around again fairly quickly. Then we get them all back in again, randomised again, put them all out again, and do the whole test again. And we do that many times during the day, so probably about once an hour. Okay, that's really about it.
So off the diviners went, eager to see if they could be the first to pass our divining test. It was getting very warm out there on the tennis court, the netball court, but the diviners went out accompanied by a scorekeeper, and one by one they went around the 20 bottles of water or sand. Some had water, some had sand. They were randomised, so nobody knew what was what. I caught up with one of the diviners after they'd finished their test. We just had one diviner finished, and what did you think of the conditions today? You were happy?
Yeah.
Excellent. And yeah. I saw you going out there, and it looked like you were getting some positive feedback, so you think you did okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Have you ever taken part in a divining test before?
No. First time.
First time? Well,
yep.
All the best to you.
Yep, good on you.
Best part of an hour into the test, the court is full of diviners and helpers and skeptics. How do you think it's going, Steve?
Oh, wonderful. We're about half an hour in, and there's 6 or 8 diviners on the court, spread evenly over all the samples. We've got a helper with each one. There's a film crew. I don't really mind.
It's going very smoothly, isn't it?
It's going very smoothly.
Very smoothly, yeah.
We put a lot of time into preparing this and organising it and catering for possible excuses to some extent.
Oh, they'll come.
They'll come. But yeah, we've done what we can. And in fairness to the diviners, it's a good, fair test. They get a fair go. And we'll see if anyone can do it.
One of the interesting things for me watching this and taking part as a scrutineer and various other activities was to see the different methods water diviners used in order to detect water. Many used the traditional wire pole, bent wire rod. Some used sticks, some used many sticks. One guy used a cricket ball on the end of a long bit of string, rocking back and forth. Another man used a six-sided dice on the end of a string. I think it was made out of... The dice was made out of brass or something like that. As a pendulum. All sorts of things going on. Well, I'm on the court now. There's about 3 left in this round, 3 water diviners left. I just don't want to disturb their concentration. So each diviner is walking around putting their divining rods over the bottle of water, which is covered with a bag, so we don't know whether the water has sand or... We don't know if the bag, the bottle has sand or water. And right now a diviner has got his divining rod over a bag and he's just concentrating. And he'll tell the scrutineer what it is. Sand, he says. And that was number 19. So pretty soon, this round will be over and we will reveal the contents of all the boxes and the bottles and see who scored what.
It's either there or it isn't.
So we have another diviner who's finished. What did you think of the conditions out there today?
Oh, not too bad. There is actually water underneath those, under the ground here, because it's all more soaks and riverbeds. But I think we've managed.
You could sort of cater for that when you're divining.
Yeah.
You sort of know where.
Well, we had a look at the court before we started, so I knew pretty well where they were. But the thing is, if I back away from the sample and move to one side, there's every likelihood that I'll pick the soak or the stream that's causing the aberration.
Generally speaking, do you think you got a good reaction on the samples that were water?
Yeah. But as I say, it's not sort of the thing we're looking for when we're divining is stagnant water.
Yeah. Well, did you have any problems with the calibration ones where you knew?
No, because the wire will just pick them up and just rotate around it. But the thing is, it will do the same thing to minerals.
Okay.
So that's why I'm actually using that one as well.
You've got, what's this one here? That looks very
willow.
Green, a green forked stick, isn't it?
That's willow.
Willow, okay, that's very
because
flexible.
It won't break. If the sticks you've got over there, those thick
the
ones,
dry ones, old ones, yes.
Yeah. I reckon I can break those.
Yeah. And this one's really flexible.
Yeah. Willow is very flexible. Gum tree will shatter.
Yeah.
If you get a good heavy, good stream, the gum tree will pull around, try and curl itself around in a circle, and in the process it'll break because it's not very good under tension.
Wow. I'd like to see that. That must be spectacular.
Yeah, you can do it. But I can I tried a couple of those, but you get a very brittle piece of
I think
timber. It'll shatter.
I think you might be right.
I tried to do it to one a while ago, just to upset somebody.
Oh well, I can see it's in full swing. So thanks. It shouldn't take too much longer. But
no. Then we can scatter them around again and have another go.
Yeah. All the best.
No, it's a lot.
Finally, after a couple of hours, the first round was over. Skeptics went on to the tennis court and took out all the bottles from their bags and laid them on top of the tennis court so everybody could see which had water and which had sand. After that, all the water diviners hurried onto the course to check their scores. So it's all over for the first round anyway, and you're going around now double checking since we've revealed where everything is. How are you going so far?
About 50-50 so far.
50-50,
I'm hoping to improve on the last bit.
Right. So you've checked about half of them now, and we're wandering around and we can clearly see water or sand or water or sand.
Yes.
But I couldn't help but overhearing you just want to beat your husband, is that right?
That's exactly right. We're a bit competitive.
I see.
Yes.
Well, you never know, you might.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Good luck.
I'll let you know if I do.
Okay. At the scrutineer's table, Steve Roberts, how is it going?
Oh, pretty good. Somebody got 13, but I mean that's what you expect at random if you test enough people.
So we've got a 12 of 12, 8 and 13 so far.
So far, yeah. I'm just copying the marks out.
Okay.
And they're all having to go on the court. We're going to set the samples out again. Actually, fairly soon when they're finished on the court and they're at peace, we'll spec them all up and set the samples out again.
Carry on.
Thank you. There's a trouble there.
Well, the scores have been tallied at the end of the first round, and I note that 2 out of 16 got a score of 13 out of 20. The rest are ranging from, there's a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13, and very evenly distributed. We're just going to make up a bell curve and get stuck into round 2.
Do we have a texture colour type?
Well, once the results were put up on the board for all to see, the diviners took great interest in this. And they could also see that nobody had got even close to showing any divining ability. I'm pleased to say most of them took it very well and decided to have another go in the next round. And now it's round 2, and once again we venture onto this country tennis court or netball court, which it's been turned into. And a lot of diviners are back for a second go. A lot of new diviners have showed up this afternoon. And there's about 6 or 7 on the court at the moment with their scrutineers walking around concentrating. This lady's using a fork stick, a classic fork stick. 2 women are. One woman has a bent coat hanger, I think. Another guy over there's got 2 metal rods. What's this person over here? There's a little boy here with 2 metal rods. And another diviner with 2 metal rods. So we're getting a bit of a mixture today. There wasn't too much complaining about the results of the first trial, although somebody said that if the sand has water in it, then that would throw off his water divining ability. To be honest, we're expecting to hear some interesting excuses during the course of the day. I was delighted to see Dr. Chrissy Wilson, the roving reporter for the Skeptic Zone, turn up to look at the tests, and she did a lot of the publicity, a lot of the media work in promoting the mighty Mitta Mitta water divining test. Chrissy Wilson!
Hello, Richard.
Hello. Oh, it's so hot out here.
It is. It's getting hotter and hotter, actually.
Come back here into the shade.
Yes, that's better.
Now, you've been having a chat with some of the diviners. What have they been telling you?
The whiners, did you say? That was a Freudian slip if ever I've heard one.
Diviners.
You said whiners.
I said diviners. Folks, you can play it back and hear it yourself.
Yeah, they've had 2 goes now, and some of them have expressed to me some reasons why they haven't done as well as they thought they would do. Apparently there's minerals in sand and the rods are picking up the minerals in the sand. Right. So we should have used flour.
Flour?
Yeah, apparently that's where we've gone wrong.
If only.
So we should have had flour. But I've got to say, I mean, they're very sincere people. They're not here to make a fast buck. They're not, charlatans. They are genuinely sincere people.
I get that impression, absolutely.
And take it very, very seriously.
Yes,
very seriously.
And we're seeing half the court at the moment as we speak from this little vantage point. And look at him go, look at him, the concentration, he's stepping over.
Yeah, that chap in the far corner there, that's Andy. I've spoken to him a couple of times. Lovely bloke, actually, very genuine.
And your mum had a go.
And my mum had a go. I'm terrified she's going to get like 18 or 19 out of 20. She was holding up proceedings though, because she was this is embarrassing, but she was genuinely waiting to get some kind of divine inspiration.
And she had a huge
it's not
stick.
working. It's not working. Like, Mum, just guess. It's not real. But yeah, it's going to be hilarious if it turns out that she got
a good score. That would be very funny.
But it's a fantastically successful event.
Oh, it's wonderful. The only
brilliant job.
Thing is, it's just hot. It's really hot out here, and it's a lot of heat coming off the tennis court. So I'm running around making sure Skeptics have got water and sunscreen on.
Well, maybe all this added moisture is going to be interfering with the results.
Don't give them ideas.
We're been running in rivers of sweat.
That's right.
Maybe that's going to be a confounding variable in the results.
And here comes our old friend, the helicopter.
Yeah.
Tick. What you can hear now is me marking some of the scorecards. Crosses or ticks. Either they got it right or they got it wrong. This process went on for some time.
Cross, tick, 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 cross.
After looking at the scores from the second round, I had a word to our statistician, Ian Bryce.
We should move into the shade, guys.
Let's move into the shade, Ian Bryce, and I just noticed that you were looking at the histogram, and it's more or less going along the lines of the classic bell curve, wouldn't you say?
Yes, it is. The highest point is 9, which is very close to 10 within statistical variation.
Yep.
And the first round we coloured in black, and the second round we coloured in red. And you can see that the more points we get, the more it approximates to a bell curve.
It's looking that way. The highest score so far is 15, which is interesting, but still within what you would expect given the more and more contestants we have coming through.
That's right, yes. It's not that easy to explain to someone that although they got the highest score on the day, it's still below chance, because they want to go home saying they're the champion diviner of Mitta. Yeah. It's a fairly difficult one to answer.
Roughly how many people have we had through? Can you remember? How many people have we had? Do we know?
16 and 20, roughly speaking, so 36 today, but they've been repeats.
Yes.
Half of the second group, I'd say, were repeats.
Had another go,
from the first group.
And we're waiting now for a little break, and then we'll have another round.
Yes, looking forward to that.
And I can see the bottles are already laid out, ready to go.
Yes, indeed.
I caught up with an interesting diviner who earlier in the day had divined Diet Coke. I asked him about his procedure. I'm with a water diviner here who divines Diet Coke. Is that true?
Well, every object has a serial number, and I'm not too sure what we came up with. What was it, Laurie?
The Diet Coke was about 17, I remember.
17, yeah.
17. What's water?
Water is 7.
7?
Yeah, the serial number of water is 7, as well as copper, so you can't really get them confused, because then at the end of the rotations it pulls in a different direction. Because water is a different direction to copper, that's how you distinguish them.
All right, so, and you had to go out here earlier today, or only one or twice?
I've had 2 goes.
2 goes, right. How did you go?
Not all that successful. I'm not used to a confined space, but in the open areas where I divine over large acres, I do a lot of map divining between states even, and then go to the site and do the survey on site, which would take an hour or more. So that's when the pendulum comes in handy, because then you can then find whether there is water underneath. If it doesn't spin 7 times and pull northwest, well, there's no water under there.
So you learn something new every day. Well, I wish you the best of luck in this round.
Thank you very much anyway.
A lovely young lady diviner here, and I saw you out there earlier trying your luck. How do you think you went?
I think I did pretty good. I was just getting a vibe, so I wrote down what I felt.
Yeah? You're feeling pretty confident?
Yeah, I guess so. It's my first time doing it, so...
Be very interested to see, and your friends are having a snigger over there. Have you tried it?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, and how do you think you went?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. It's very exciting. I can't wait to see what the results are. And are you going to try it?
No, I just watched them really, so I think they did pretty good. So yeah.
All right. Well, we'll all know the scores pretty soon. So good luck to you all.
Thank you.
After the next round, I went out on the court and caught up with yet more diviners as they were checking their own scores. Well, folks, so you had a big check of your scores. How did you go this time?
Worse.
Oh. How did you go? Do you just checking now?
9.
9, okay. And yourself?
12.
12, okay. We're all around the middle mark at the moment, but it's a mighty hot day for a mighty Mitta Mitta, I must say. But I hope you had a fun today. They're just debating now whether to hold one final one, but we'll see. But as yet, and I don't know because I don't know all the final scores, we haven't found somebody yet who can get that magic number of 18 to pass the test, but we'll
I keep picking
better
up a
check.
water pipe across there. I keep picking up a water pipe under there, and that throws you out.
But if you know it's there, can you sort of compensate for it?
So far away from the thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that Laurie Smith, one of the organisers, has a ground radar image of this whole tennis court.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a pipe, but you'll have to check with him.
Yeah, righto.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
No worries, mate. Thanks.
After the third and final round of testing was complete, and the scores indicated that nobody had in fact reached the magical level of 18 out of 20, I found another diviner and asked him why he thought the scores were so bad.
I might have a quick word with you, if I may. So the divining test's all over. How would you explain the fact that there were lots and lots and lots of diviners here? How could all these diviners fail on the day? Do you have any thoughts on that?
A couple of things.
Yeah.
The sand seemed to be picking up as if it was damp, so it was picking up. It was putting people off a bit because the sand was damp. For some reason, I don't know why. There, and that was one thing that most diviners said, that the damp sand in the bottle seemed to be picking up that it shouldn't be picking up. There. And another reason why it's very hard to divine water that's still, because divining is a water where the electricity's in your body and the electricity is running, and you're picking it up. The water is running, and your rod and your electricity in your body works that way.
So if there was a test with running water instead of still water, you'd think you'd have a better shot at it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with this. This was a real good test, and you could have it again. Yeah, there's no problem.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Me and Bryce, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to jump into a cold swimming pool or a river, but we're looking at the final results. Let's have a look at this histogram, and what can you tell me?
Okay, great. We have a histogram here which shows the number of times each particular result came up. For example, the most common result was 9 out of 20.
Yeah.
And that occurred about 19 times. And the next was 8 out of 20 and 10 out of 20. So with a perfectly average statistical batch, we would expect 10 out of 20. So it's very close to that.
It's very close to that. Yes. And so most people got slightly under what chance would predict, but we have the highest score on the day was 16 this time.
Yes, 16 out of 20,
yeah.
which is quite possible according to chance, where you've got 50-odd competitors.
Indeed.
You would expect some around 16.
And of course the lowest was 6. So it's more or less what we'd expect to see.
Yes. So the null hypothesis is not disproven. Unfortunately, science often talks in double negatives, but the null hypothesis survives. In other words, the assumption that only statistics is operating and no actual mysterious force on the divining rod, that test survives today.
Survives today. Survives to be tested another day. Thank you,
indeed.
Ian.
Thank you, Richard.
And then it was all over. In fact, there were hardly any water diviners left to look at the results at the end of the day. I think they knew what they were going to be. I want to thank all the people who took part, all the volunteers from New South Wales and Victoria. A big thank you to Laurie and Eden Smith for their wonderful hospitality. Big thank you to Dr. Chrissy Wilson for the wonderful work she did in promoting the event. Steve Roberts, skeptical Steve Roberts, who did the protocol and was on hand during the course of the day to make sure everything ran smoothly. Martin Hadley for his work at the official check-in desk, and so many other skeptics who helped out during the course of the day. Later that day we relaxed once again with a wonderful barbecue at the home of Russell and Robin Kelly.
It's all over. We're here back at the house of, Russell and Robin Kelly. The Skeptics are gathered around. We've had our steaks and sausages and fried potatoes and all sorts of things.
And they're cooking chicken wings.
And they're cooking chicken wings, but at last we can celebrate a successful divining day, Laurie. Cheers.
Thank you, Richard.
Cheers everybody. Yay. They don't clink, they're made out of plastic. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
More detailed results of the test will be published at www.skeptics.com.au in the near future when we sort out all the statistics. We look forward to the next series of water divining tests, wherever and whenever they are.
The gang turned up armed with wire and wood to locate the water wherever they could by reading vibrations that come from the ground, which show where the water was sure to be found. They came to win money at the Dowsing convention with prayers of hope for divine intervention to help them to sense the old H2O. Then one by one, they all had a go. Chance predicted the success they would face as they searched for the water all over the place, at the muster in the hills up Mitta Mitta way, and with the loot on the line, they were ready to play. Walking in a circle or in a crisscross line, with a weight of belief in the autumn sunshine, making sweat on their brows as they tried to tell which was just sand and where was the well. Then the sun went down on the muster at Mitta, and the sweet taste of victory had turned a bit bitter, for the dowsers and diviners had failed to find water. Maybe their rods should have been longer or shorter. The contestants blamed static and streams and fences that disturbed the waves and twiddled their senses, but the skeptics went home with their booty intact, because none could prove that dowsing's a fact.